Hi everyone, it's Niamh here and welcome to my art journaling channel. Today we're going to be making a display for our ACTs or pieces of art and embossing on a piece of Perspex. So I'm starting off with a piece of rectangular Perspex. I bought this from our local Kmart in the craft section. It came two to a pack and I had a little wooden stand and I just got totally inspired by it. I made my first piece, which I really loved, and I wanted to do a companion piece with it. Now the important thing to remember when you're working on Perspex is you need to work back to front. So anything that you would see first on a journaled page, you need to put down first, and then you're going to work right the way back to the initial layers. I started off with paint pen, and then I started off with some gloss spray in the neon colors. Now I'm really impatient, if you hadn't noticed before. I didn't have time to sit here and wait for those big blobs to dry, so I ended up sponging a lot of it off. You could still see some in the final layer, but yeah, be patient, you know. wait for a bit for it to dry. You can see a lot of it came off, but there is actually some you can still see through the background. Because on my last piece, I actually stamped on the front side of the Perspex. On this piece, I decided to stamp on the back. So I'm just sort of seeing what worked best. And while I got quite clear stamping on the front, on the back, because I was then putting layers of paint over the top, it got a little bit blurry. Now, it's great because it still adds depth to it, but it got me thinking as I was going along, how can I make the stamping on the front like really crisp and clear? You can see when I turned it over, it's almost a little bit of grey. The other thing I was finding was that the Perspex was actually tolerating a little bit of heat. It did start to warp a little bit, but I was actually using my heat gun fairly quickly over the surface. So that gave me a bit of an idea that it was possible to use embossing powders on this, and that sort of little spark, so to speak. I'm just going in with some stenciling. So again, you can see you start off with sort of bare minimum on the Perspex and then you're building up. So there's a little bit more stenciling on this, and then I'm going to put in the background colors. This is one of the new stencils from Dina, which are gorgeous triangles. It's a really loose stencil. It's a mask really, but it just gives you lots of area to play with it. And it's one of those ones that you can use any little bit of it and it's going to end up looking good. So for this piece I'm actually working in reverse. So I am using warm colors in the foreground and I'm going to cover the background with cool colors, so it sort of contrasts and stands out. So I'm starting off with some mineral and then going in with some turquoise, and then I'll go in, I think, with some malachite. Can't remember, just trying to do it off the top of my head. Or no, sapphire, sorry. I'm using the same sponge because I don't mind mixing the colors. It helps blend it a little bit. And I am using a sponge to do this and just tapping lightly up and down. So just the same sort of technique you would use to stencil, using the same on the back. Again, I'm giving it a quick heat with my heat gun just to dry it off enough that I can sort of turn it over and continue to work without it doing it. So there you can see you get this gorgeous effect. Once you peel off the front protective covering, you get this really cool look to it. I then decided I wanted to do sort of a double layer of stamping on it, which is what I was thinking about before, and I decided I was going to emboss on it. So that was going to give me a really lovely deep color to the front, I suppose, a real contrast of black, because you can sort of see the stamping in the background. While it's black, it's sort of almost a grey color, and I wanted to have that dark contrast. So I'm looking for my fine embossing powder and I'm just tipping it on. Now you could obviously use your VersaFine ink to do this. I just stamped it out with my archival ink because it's while it does dry permanently on the Perspex, it stays wet enough that the embossing powder will stick to it, and it actually worked really, really well. So then I am going over and I am heating up my embossing powder. Now, I am holding it slightly longer in one spot to melt it, and you can sort of see when it starts to change. But you do need to be aware, you have to work fairly quickly, and if it does start to warp a bit, move on to another part and then go back to it. But both pieces I have now are really, really sturdy. So they, you know, they had a little bit of warp in it, and then they went back flat again. But you can see how crisp and clear that embossing is on there. That also allowed me to use my white paint pen to go in and add some detail onto these stamped images very, very easily, because particularly with these leaves, they've got the lines in them already, so I'm just putting the paint pen in between it. Like, it's really super simple. With a fine paint pen, it's not an issue at all. And again, it just lightens up that, because in person you could sort of see the gaps in between. It's a bit harder to see that on screen, but just adding that little bit of white helps balance it all out again, which was really handy. I was really pleased with how that turned out, and it just made me really, really happy. I then decided I wanted to really finish it off, so I'm just getting my gold leafing pen and doing the edge. You could do that with any colour pen. I decided to use a bit of gold just because I had the gold in the background as well, and it just makes me happy. So the other thing that I had with this was a little wooden block to pop my piece of Perspex into, and that came provided in the kit. So I could have painted it if I wanted to, but I just left it the raw wood. But I cut out a piece of transparency from Dina's text quotes, transparencies, had a bit of colour behind them, and stuck that onto the bottom of my block. I also used my E6000 glue to glue down my clip to make it actually into a display clipboard, and that has been really, really secure. So I got that from Spotlight. You can get little tubes of it so it doesn't dry out on you, which is really handy, and I just used one of the Dino clips. So there's the little block, you can see it sort of just sits into, and then I decided to add my little, I was going to stamp on it and decided not to. Then I decided to add some of my strips of words. So you can see me going through my little box. These are all transparencies I've painted in the past, and so I just cut them out then and use them, you know, on my ATCs, on whatever I've got, which is really, really handy. Just glued it down and embrace a mess. So I've got now this piece that I can put up on display and put my artwork up on display on my ATCs or cards or whatever I've got, and have a piece of art displaying art, which I really love the idea of it. In these close-ups you can see how the layers work. You can see the little blobs of ink. You can see how that black from the embossing contrast, and on this piece you can see the contrast between the left hand side that has been embossed in black and the right hand side which has just been stamped on. So I just wanted to include that so you could sort of see the difference between the two. So thank you so much for watching. Those of you in Australia who want to find those Perspex display clip things, Kmart in the craft areas, you will be able to get them. You can 2 to a pack, so they're awesome. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.